Sure.
Okay, I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the South Tahoe Public Utility Directors Board of Directors meeting. If you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and do we have any comments from members of the audience at this time? Okay, seeing none. So it has been brought to the board's attention that items 4A and 4B need to be approved under action. And in addition, Director Peterson would like to pull items 4D and 4E. And so it's been decided that we will postpone those items and move them to the next meeting's action agenda. Excuse me. Therefore, I move that consent items 4A and 4B be pulled from consent and moved to action and to be placed after payment of claims, item 6B, and that items 4D and 4E be postponed and moved to our next meeting's action agenda.
Can we also move item 11 before item 10?
That actually doesn't need to be official. We were just going to do that.
You do that?
Yeah. Thank you.
We're good. I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. Do we have Director Cephalou on the line?
You do? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. How would you like to vote on this action item?
Yes.
Okay, and let's see, that is a yes. That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, and then I will move that we adopt the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comes the vote. While they are voting, Director Cephalou, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
No, I have some comments.
There we go.
Okay. That brings us to item 6A. Is that you, Julie?
Yeah, I'll be presenting this one today. Good afternoon. I'm here today to request that the board, well, it's a multi-item request, but that they take action on the award of the aeration blower system emergency power and secondary clarifiers 1 and 2 projects. We received 3 bids on May 4th, ranging in the amount from $5.5 million to $5.9 million for the base bid. This project is fairly expensive. There's multiple parts to it. It includes not only the construction of the emergency blower generator here at the wastewater treatment plant, but also rehabilitation of 2 of the 3 clarifiers. One of the clarifiers is currently under rehabilitation, and this will follow on next summer and the year after with the remaining 2 clarifiers. And then the third major piece of this project is the installation of emergency backup power batteries at 11 of our water tank sites that currently have no emergency power supply. So big scope, big dollars, $5.5 to $5.9 million. The staff proceeded after the bid opening with our normal review of the documentation that was submitted with the bids. Our contract administrator performed her review of the bid, and in the meantime, we're waiting for submission of hard copy of the good faith effort, disadvantaged business enterprise good faith effort documentation from the contractors that comes in after the bid. We do that DBE good faith effort review and have that as part of our contract documents when a project is being funded by the state revolving funds, which the secondary clarifiers portion of this project has a loan under that source. So it is a requirement of SRF that our contractors do an outreach program to disadvantaged businesses in order to give them an opportunity to submit bids for subcontracting work on the project. So there's a lot of pieces that go into the review, and in this case, what came out of our review is that each of the bids had a number of irregularities with them. Some of those are immaterial. They don't give the bidder a competitive advantage. They don't put our funding at risk. But in this case, the first two bidders had irregularities in their bids that we have deemed to be material. And they stem from our compliance with that disadvantaged business good faith effort program. And so the recommendation that we are bringing to you today is that we find the first two bidders non-responsive because of these irregularities and the potential they have to put our funding source at risk, and award the project to the third bidder, Vinciguerra Construction, whose bid has no material irregularities. I can go into more detail, but that is kind of the situation we're in a nutshell. Any questions at this point? I'll have a little bit more to say.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just reading through TNT's letter, it sounded like their argument is that the lacking information is there, it just wasn't arranged properly in the forms. That doesn't correct the irregularity?
No, and the information that is required by the state was not actually there. In TNT's case, they submit, there's a form that is required by the state to come in with the bid at bid time. We call it Form 4. And it is basically their testament to what disadvantaged business they intended to use in the course of the project. And what they did is they included the back side of the form signed, but on the front side, it was a photocopy of Form 2, and it was completely blank. And so the content of Form 4 was actually missing, and that's the problem. And we reached out to our contact at the state to just confirm our understanding of the implications of this, and what we were told was that the omission of this form at bid time would come up as an irregularity in a future audit by the state and could result in them pulling back the funding at some time in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Julie from board or staff? Do we have members of the audience that are going to comment?
So we do have two folks from Vinciguerra, three folks from Vinciguerra here. I don't know if you have anything to say.
Only if there's any questions.
Okay, here to answer questions. I didn't point out that we did receive two protests to the staff's recommendation to not only disqualify the first two bidders, but to award to the third bidder. And so that's the letter that Dave is referring to from TNT. We also had an email from FAR Construction, who was actually a low bidder, requesting that we throw out all the bids and start over. that's something that we definitely don't, none of this is anything that we take lightly, but throwing out, bids and starting over, you know, that is something in this bidding climate, would be very, risky. You know, bids are coming in, well above estimates. There's a lot of volatility out there, and not only would we stand to, lose a year, we also put the funding that we secured at risk. And so because we have, you know, a quite clean bid here with only immaterial irregularities that is within the range of our budget, and in close comparison to the others we received, it's our recommendation that we go ahead and award to the third bid.
Anything else?
Okay. Well, with that, I will go ahead and read this multi-part action. I'm requesting that the board find the bid from FAR Construction Corporation, doing business as Resource Development Company, non-responsive, and reject their bid. Reject the protest from FAR Construction, doing, that is a typo, they are not doing business as Resource Development Company, as
Are you rejecting the vote?
I'm sorry, okay, I'm starting over. One, find the bid from Park Construction doing business as Resource Development Company, non-responsive, and reject their bid. Reject the protest from Park Construction Corporation doing business as Resource Development Company as without merit. Find the bid from T&T Industrial Contractors Incorporated, non-responsive, and reject their bid. Reject the protest from T&T Industrial Contractors Incorporated as without merit. Find the minor irregularities in the bid from Vincent Garrett Construction Incorporated to be immaterial and waive the immaterial irregularities, and award the project to the lowest responsible bidder, Vincent Garrett Construction Incorporated, in the amount $6,137,864, including all bid alternates.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Here comes the vote. Director Stefano, how would you like to vote on this item?
I'll vote yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, that moves us to 6B, and I'm going to move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $873,423.42.
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Director Stefano, how would you like to vote on this item?
I vote yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
So that brings us to what was formerly on the consent calendar, item 4A, Tahoe Pump Station Installment Sale Agreement.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
We were actually just informed this morning by the legal counsel that we use for our debt transactions, that there's actually government code that requires agenda items approving debt to be on action versus consent, so that's why we pulled it forward, just so we can actually take a vote on it. The first is a resolution approving the state revolving fund loan for the Tahoe Keys Pump Station project, and it's in an amount not to exceed $6,189,331, and it's expected to have an interest rate below 1.5%. It includes a term of 30 years and creates an estimated annual debt service payment of $259,346, which is built into the long range forecast of the district. So the staff recommendation is to approve resolution number 3171-21, the installment sale agreement resolution of the Board of Directors of the South Tahoe Public Utility District for the Tahoe Keys Pump Station Rehabilitation Project.
Anybody have any questions for Paul?
I guess I just assume that in the words installment sale, or somebody who's not involved in the project, but put those words on the agreement. I mean, this isn't an installment sale, it's a loan for a project, right?
True, but the actual contract that we signed with the state of California, it's called an installment sale agreement, yeah.
A little confusing, but it's a loan.
It is.
It's a simple loan.
It's a term loan, yeah.
We have a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number 3171-21.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Director Cefalu, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And just to declare that I am conflicted out of Tahoe Keys Water Company matters, but not sewer matters related to the Keys. So that's why I've engaged in this one. Sorry.
All right, so now that moves us to the formally the consent item 4B, which is pretty much the same story, just a different project.
This one is a resolution that's approving the state revolving fund loan for a multiple water line project. The water lines included are Rocky Point 1, Black Bart water lines number 1 and 2, Bowers water line, and Bijou water lines number 2 and 3. This project is in an amount not to exceed $9 million, and it also anticipates an interest rate below 1.5%. It includes a 30-year term with an annual debt service payment of $374,753, which is built into the district's long-range forecast. So staff is recommending approval of resolution number 3172-21, the installment sale agreement resolution of the Board of Directors of the South Tahoe Public Utility District for the Waterline Replacement Program project.
I'll move to approve resolution number 3172-21.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Director Cefalu, how would you like to vote?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And that moves us to standing and ad hoc committees and liaison reports. Do we have any?
Sure. I had one from the last meeting. Or wait, no.
I don't think so.
I'm getting a look on my head, I'm like, no, in all fairness to me, the COVID type work is really on my head, I'm supposed to be honest with you.
It's just our committee for a while.
I think so too, yeah. Years.
Right. We had an operations committee meeting on the 17th, and it was actually a very good discussion. We went for at least a couple hours, and there was some key discussions about, the item we just voted on, that blower, and I gotta be honest with you, being in private practice and competing for projects, I feel their pain. You screw up on a form and you get kicked out, and I understand, been there, it sucks. I feel sorry for those top two bidders, but that's the way it goes. So anyway, we talked about that quite a bit. There's a couple of upcoming RFPs that we walked through, and then the consultant selection process. Staff brought us a report on that. So anyway, it was a very good discussion. Shane?
Yeah, I thought it was we went for another hour after you left us, so we talked mostly about what's going on with Tahoe Keys, and I'm not sure if I can talk too much about that, but it sounds like we're moving towards resolution to finding a solution that helps them out in the summer and perhaps in the long term as well. The other thing that I think this board probably should hear maybe at one of the regular board meetings is the results of their fire risk vulnerability assessment. I basically request that we bring that to a presentation to the full board, just so we have a sense of kind of where our vulnerabilities are throughout the district's territory. And then we also discussed a little bit as we move into the fire season, some of the readiness of our fire hydrants in terms of them being exercised and making sure that we have those facilities ready to go in case of a fire. So.
Anybody else? Okay, how about board member report?
Well, I work constantly, and I'm with you lovely folks, so that's pretty much what I've been up to, and time with the kids as well.
We did have a Association California Water Agency Spring Conference on the 12th and 13th. It was virtual, and since they've gone virtual, those conferences have been pretty lightweight. There were a couple of agenda items that were pretty interesting. There was one developments in Prop 218 that was good, and then there was another item on California's Forest and Wildfire Resilience Plan. It wasn't that enlightening. It's pretty obvious what it would say, but it's good that AQUA is focusing on that now. And that's really key, that the new executive director was I think he was general counsel for EID. So he's from this area and he understands the issues of the mountain counties. So anyway, it was a pretty good meeting. I look forward to those things being in person though, because it's hard to derive a lot of value from online presentations.
Okay, I have nothing. Do you have anything?
Just to mention that John and I met with the general manager at the Truckee Sanitary District last weekend. Just a good opportunity for, he was a former roommate of mine in college, and so I introduced him to John, and I thought it was a good opportunity for them to kind of compare notes and understand kind of similar issues that they're dealing with, their respective positions, and sounding like there might be an opportunity for John to further network with some of the folks on the Truckee side of things as it relates to operations.
Yeah, there's some good ideas on operations up there that definitely can work with Blake on, get more information on, and plus I got some good stories on Shane, so I can.
Yeah.
Can we get those under the report?
Other.
Okay. How about El Dorado Water Agency report?
We met actually on the morning of the 12th, conflicted with part of the AQUA thing, but I only missed the plenary information, which was no big miss. But that went through the budget for the first time, and it's largely like last year's budget, but there are places in there where they've got quite a bit of money for grants and certain programs that they're favoring. So some of them are earmarked really for us and our groundwater, and so, but other ones are a little bit more open-ended, things that we can reach into. So they had a little bit of discussion about their staffing, where they've been pretty much just a general manager and another lady that does everything else. And so they're going to hire 2 more people, a water resources engineer to be kind of the project manager and take a little bit of the consultant load off, because they've had consultants doing all their project management, all the program management, and everything else. So they're going to do a little bit more of that in-house, and there was support on the board for that. So the next meeting, they'll bring back a revised budget with those staffing changes in and the reductions in the consulting. So that's what's going on there.
Okay, is Evo going to present remotely?
Yes, I believe so.
And Evo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Because we're going to move you ahead of John.
Okay.
If you're ready.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Kelly. Good afternoon, board members. Update, or actually, this is, I think, the first time it's been introduced to you about the district's utility pipeline crossings assessment project. I guess where we're at is engineering prepared an RFP for engineering services to help staff conduct pipeline condition assessments and field surveys of our utility pipeline crossings at surface water streams within our district service area. These pipeline conditions assessments and field surveys are going to be used to collect information that will help us to develop a prioritized list of district utility crossings and ranking them in terms of their potential susceptibility to damage from erosion and potential structural failure or pipe failure at those crossings. The work would involve existing data review, which engineering staff has already compiled, development of work plans for actually doing the field conditions assessments and site surveys, going through and doing the work to conduct those field surveys, doing that collected data, and basically using that new data to help reprioritize that list and develop an electronic catalog of the crossings that the district could then use to help identify high-risk utility pipeline crossings, develop contingency plans for those crossings, and plan needed improvements. Another potential benefit from doing the work is that it would allow the district to bundle projects to help stream the permitting, the environmental permitting that's at a heightened level of sensitivity and complexity for any work that's being done within these SEZ areas. So those are the benefits that we see from doing this work. The value of the work is estimated at around $300,000. We plan on putting the RFP out next Tuesday, and just so you know that dollars have already been budgeted for this project starting in the next fiscal year, and we are within the amount that's in the budget for this project. If everything goes well, we hope to bring this back to the board for a recommendation for award at the next or at the July 1 meeting, board meeting. So that's what's going on there. If you would indulge me, I just want to give you a brief update on the Plummer Well Rehab project. That wasn't listed there, and I thought it was important enough just to let you know that we had the bid opening. It was last Friday on the 14th. We had there were a number of prospective bidders. There were actually 3 prime bidders that were involved with the project. Unfortunately, the district did not receive a bid from any of the prospective bidders. So I made follow-up calls to the bidders, and the issues that stopped the bidders from actually submitting a bid had to do with existing workloads and having shorthanded crews and personnel at this time to be able to allow themselves to bid the project. We had one of the 3 mentioned that they thought they did have availability, but the person that prepared the bids had other bids on the table, and they basically ran out of time and were not able to put together a submittal in response to our to our solicitation. So where do we go from here? If you take a look at the schedule, the project schedule, there are long lead times that have to go, that are unusual this year, not just for pipe, but also for wiring. And so pumps, submersible pumps and motors, you know, in a normal situation, you're looking at a minimum 6-week lead time. When I was speaking with some of the pump contractors, they're saying, they gave me the impression that, you know, more realistically, it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks out, maybe even more realistic, 10 to 12 weeks out. So where we are right now, and the long lead times for a replacement pump and motor, not including the lead times that's going to be required for the casing liner for that well, I do not see any chance, even if we went to that one bidder who said that and started negotiations with them, that we would have water before the end of our peak summer water demand season. So the plan is to put this out for bid. From my conversations with the bidders, their workloads look like they're going to ease up. A lot of them have ag clients. They're in the height of their high water use for irrigation. And what I've heard is they expect that to soften up and that they would be more than happy to work with us later on in the summer. So that's kind of what's happening there. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you at this time.
Evo, I'd like to circle back to the crossings. How many of those do you think we have?
Well, I know that we have 203 inferred crossings. And what we've done, Chris, is that we've gone through and we've done an initial prioritization on those. And so that's what we're going to be including in the RFP is our initial prioritization list. And we're going to be kind of looking for a consultant that can collect the information in the most cost-efficient manner, basically doing as many of those sites as they can for $300,000. And that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be considering when we review these proposals.
Okay, that's a lot, more than I thought. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I just say, I said this in committee, but I'll say it again. I think this is a really important project. These are critical links, and I'm glad that staff is jumping on this. And looks like you're taking the right path. So fully support this project.
Anyone else?
I guess I would second that with Dave. I think it's really important, given the sensitivity of our environment here in Tahoe, we should be definitely paying attention to those areas and making sure that we're doing whatever we can to maintain the integrity of the system. And I guess also, I think I wanted to mention as part of the report out is that Steve Caswell did give a kind of an update on where we were with the recycled water strategic plan RFP. And so that's something that's coming out. And I didn't want to, not recognize Steve for, he gave a really nice presentation. Looking forward to that coming forward as well.
All right, thank you, Evo. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to general manager report.
Thanks, Kelly. I have a few updates for you today, starting with our COVID update. And a little bit more today than in the past. Just want to brief update kind of on district news, and then also talk about COVID relief funding, hopefully coming our way. So starting with the district, just continued positive news. I sent the board some updated information earlier today. No COVID sickness at the district, And we actually have no one out for any reason due to COVID. We have had some random one-day absences due to reactions from the second shot, but that's the only thing. And almost 2/3 of our staff have been vaccinated. We do have some office staff continuing to work remotely to some degree, and this will come to an end in June when all remaining remote staff return to the office full-time. We had Wayne and Austin come in today as kind of a special circumstance on our action item, and perhaps the board would like to consider opening the meetings to all of the public in June. So maybe something to think about. Kelly, actually, if you want to have discussion now, that's fine.
Crowds have been waiting.
Yeah, I think it's time to open this floodgates right now.
All right.
If all kidding aside, I feel comfortable with it, and if everybody else does, both staff and other board members, I think we should as well.
Okay.
John, could I add one thing to that? I was going to give a quick simple report, but it has to do with the COVID stuff.
Sure.
There are several associations in California, including Aqua, Urban Counties, League of Cities, et cetera, that have penned a letter to the governor asking for some guidance on and time what the CDC has indicated that California can return to normal on June 15th. And the concern is right now, pursuant to the executive orders that allow for remote meetings, waives the right, you don't have to post where your board members are sitting, public comment remotely, et cetera. There was some guidance and transition guidance from the governor for 30 days after June 15th to make that transition back to full board meetings being held in public and hear what the governor has to say about is he going to rescind these orders? Are they automatically done on the 15th? So we'll see if, and that letter was sent to the governor on May 18th. So we'll see if there's a response that comes back.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. So I have more on in regards to COVID funding and the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. This federal COVID relief funding has been approved, and the funding will be coming directly to the states and to the counties and to some cities, a lot of cities, the larger cities. I've been in touch with our city and county on this. We may need to request funding from the city and county in the future, mostly looking for reimbursement for our COVID relief program and some sick time due to COVID. And all of those two components total about $485,000. And then we can also even look forward to perhaps even water line construction components and projects in the future. I mean, the legislation is open to water, wastewater, and broadband infrastructure projects. So we're engaged on that and working on that with our partners. I'm seeking direct funding from the state without the need to go to the city and the county. At this point, we've joined CSDA, the California Special Districts Association, in a request to the governor to approve a budget which provides these funds directly to special districts. The state budget must be finalized by June 15th, so we will know by then where the funds will be and where we need to go to get them. There was an El Dorado County Board of Supervisors meeting just this past Tuesday. I requested that Supervisor Novosel support our request to the governor on this, and she did so, and actually so did all 5 of the supervisors at that meeting, supporting our request for direct from the state COVID relief funding. The city, by the way, I talked to Joe Urban a few days ago as well. They're scheduled to receive about $4.2 million in 2 parts, separated by 12 months. When they do receive it, they'll receive half in maybe the next month or 2, and then the other half 12 months from that release date. The city, they've set up a committee to address the use of these funds. This will first come to council on June 15th at their regular meeting, and they plan to engage the public very heavily on how these funds should be used. And they expect to perhaps begin releasing funds come August. So we will stay on top of this and engage with the city and the county. Again, we would like to be successful with the state and receive those funds directly. And we'll know by June 15th. That's my COVID update. Any thoughts on this before we move to legislative affairs?
John, do you know, are the city and county gonna be targeting their fund allocations to just directly to COVID relief, or do you think they'll go outside that box at all?
Looking at the guidance from the Treasury on the use of those funds, it's pretty broad. It can be used to make up for past revenue losses, for expenses associated with COVID. Also looking forward, expenses to help a recovery effort, and then also even in projects, water, wastewater, and broadband are actually specifically addressed. So, and paving is a part of that too. So if I'm kind of thinking ahead for the city, and affordable housing is on there, there's a lot of different elements to this COVID relief funding.
I need more than $4 million.
Yeah, I mean, so 4.2, slated for the city. DORADO County, I think $37 million, something like that. And across the country, $350 billion in just this piece of the effort, assistance to state and local governments. So
how broad have we cast our net and coming up with that 485,000? Is that
485 that covers most of that was our COVID relief effort, or that 50% rate relief to our sewer customers. That was about 385,000, and actually most of those customers were city customers. And then we had about $105,000 worth of sick time related to COVID.
What, could we include the lack of the rate increase for the last 2 years?
That possibly.
Oh, wow.
We were on CSDA was part of a webinar just earlier this morning, and so we're definitely, Paul was on that. I think Lynn was on that call as well.
I had that same thought while
Well, because as we were talking about this, and to your point, like, if I love broad parade, so like, I mean, you know, get creative with our broad,
There's projects we deferred.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of things, capital improvement, what did the capital improvement budget happen, what implications took place as a result of the 2 years of deferred 6% increases, right? So, yeah, I think you could really kind of broaden that scope. Good point.
Yeah, if you asked me before 11 a.m. today, I'd be like, oh, there's no way, but it was in their presentation, and I think I heard Paul a couple doors down, like, maybe we have a chance. Maybe we have a chance at that. Again, there's going to be a lot of competition for those funds. So part of this guidance is how to get our story out and how to package that and reach out and get support for our projects like infrastructure for firefighting. I think that's a strong project.
I mean, that's incredibly strong.
Yeah. But we'll have a lot of competition, and we'll see what happens. But they want us to view this as really kind of they said once in a lifetime, but they said once in a lifetime opportunity, because there's a lot of, normally with federal funding comes with a lot of strings, but not so much in this case. And it looks like there's going to be, a 3 or 4 year time frame to do these projects. So I think we're well situated for doing that.
I think the fire position is well suited and would be highly supported in the community as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that'll be
Very good.
a strong one for us. Okay, move on to the next item, legislative affairs. And actually lots going on all over in this area as well, federal, state, regional efforts. And again, from DC, we are looking forward to significant federal funding for infrastructure this year. And we expect those funds to come through the state through the SRF program. So we've added more waterline projects in our SRF queue, kind of in early preparation of this funding. We've also been successful in getting the element of infrastructure for firefighting, getting that phrase into the legislation and into the conversation. And that means water lines. And we recently reached out to Feinstein and Padilla's office for potential direct earmark spending, actually identifying $10 million of district projects, waterline projects for firefighting through a direct spending request. So we're hoping they'll carry that for us moving forward this year, and we should know by late summer, early fall, if we've been successful in those direct funding requests. So again, more funding, potential funding there. So talk about our lobbying efforts a little bit and some partnership ideas that I've had. So E&S is our federal lobbyist. The district spends, as you know, a lot of our own time and a lot of money with E&S on our federal lobbying efforts. And we've been doing this largely, we've been doing this a lot in terms of looking at our regions. Okay, yeah. So kind of sensing that, seeing this, I've been wanting to share the load and strengthen our message in DC with two of our closest basin partners, Tahoe State PUD, North Tahoe PUD, two other water districts in the basin pushing hard for water lines, hydrants, and other water infrastructure. So I've been talking to both Tahoe State and North Tahoe, and they do want to join our federal lobbying efforts. We get it.
Emily text you.
Is that Chris?
I think it's Chris, and I think.
Hey, Chris, could you meet you perhaps? All good. So you were commenting on E&S for a while.
No, I was thinking Korean steak taco or chicken and waffle taco.
Oh, yeah. I heard the second one.
Yeah, the second one too.
He wants waffle. We got two waffles.
Well, there's also a spicy quinoa lentil taco that looks very good.
Oh, great.
Sorry. Back on.
It's all good. So I've been working with Tahoe City, North Tahoe. They want to join our federal efforts with E&S. And we're working out those details, modifying our scope with E&S right now. With this type of partnership, I really think, we'll have a stronger voice in DC, and overall, we'll see less time and cost coming directly to the district on this effort. And actually, I'm looking at similar efforts on the California side, focused on state lobbying coordination for water districts. We already coordinate with many other regional partners at the state level as part of the CTA, California Tahoe Alliance. So kind of more along those lines. Looking forward to that partnership. Any thoughts on legislative affairs before we move on to Tahoe Keys Water?
I guess is there opportunity to maybe bring in some folks from the Truckee area? Expand that partnership, or is that outside of the scope?
I think possibly. I think possibly we talked a little bit about that with Tahoe City, North Tahoe. We want, we really want to focus on water for infrastructure as part of this. And in the basin, I think it's strong, but I don't think it's not off the table. We talked about joining with ISGID, so I don't think they're really going to join us on E&S or join us on the state with Houston Magnani. But those lobbyists know each other in DC and Sacramento and are coordinating, working together on our regional efforts. So, we'll keep for sure. I think we'll keep everybody in mind. Shane, we thought about, should we bring the city of South Lake Tahoe in on this, but then we start to dilute our message. We just have different priorities. So, trying to keep it focused, but also a strong regional voice. So if we're ready, we'll move on to Tahoe Keys.
I got my hat on.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to recuse from the Tahoe Keys matters due to a conflict of interest, and also the closed session matters due to a conflict of interest. So with that, I will bid you adieu.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thanks, Dave. We'll get out to DVR soon, I'll give you a call. Okay, Tahoe Keys Water, lots happening with Tahoe Keys and also with Lukens and the district, all working together on this issue. As you know, there's an irrigation moratorium in the Keys now, and if you drive around the Keys, you can see a lot of brown turf out there. Lukens has completed their fill station to service licensed contractors only who must track water use and where they're irrigating and follow watering days and all the other components of the Lukens Water Conservation Program. So right now, just 2 contractors have signed up and are using this fill station, Mountain View and McIntyre Enterprises. As of Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, in total, Lukens has provided about 21,000 gallons so far. So these mobile tanks are about 500 gallons generally, so that would represent a total of 40 visits at the fill site. So not a lot of traffic, but those are the numbers as of Tuesday. Our intertie with Lukens has not been utilized for any supplemental water. Our intertie with the Keys is closed. We would like for them to complete a backflow assembly first, and we're about 4 weeks out on that before we open that intertie. But if they need emergency water beforehand, of course, we're ready to open that intertie. We've exercised that intertie. We're ready to open that at a moment's notice. Lukens and the Keys have agreed to an intertie agreement, and Lukens has hired Thomas Hayne Company to install that intertie. Hayne is ordering parts. There's some, like everything else, it's hard to get those parts and those sizes for this 8-inch intertie, but we expect that intertie will be complete and operational in 4 to 6 weeks. And that will provide at least 500, but perhaps up to 1,000 gallons per minute once Lukens well number 5 goes online. That's that new treatment system is going in. And I think they're just going through their final testing, probably a week or 2, and that well number 5 will be online and getting approval from the Department of Drinking Water. So back to the Keys, they're installing uranium treatment on well number 2 and well number 3, and they expect to have that treatment in place and operational about 4 to 6 weeks as well. And together that will provide a total of 1,200 gallons per minute, with up to 500 gallons per minute from the district intertie. Once that's open, I think we're getting close to having enough water in the Keys, along with a water conservation and landscape irrigation program in the Keys. So all working together, and the Keys is working on that as well, water conservation. They've hired GB Construction to install 34 meters in an initial effort to track water use and leaks. And we're helping them in that effort with utilizing our automated meter infrastructure system, which will provide those 15-minute data reads to the Keys, and they can get that data, collect it, analyze it, and make adjustments as necessary. And also wanted to mention that Shelley and Jen Cressy, I think you know Jen, our water conservation tech, they're working with the Keys on their water conservation efforts. Jen's time, if you recall, was 100% grant funded for community-wide utilization. So it's appropriate to use her time for the Keys, is my point. So I mentioned this at our last board meeting in my update. Just before that meeting, I received a letter formally requesting that the district take a deeper dive into district water supply alternatives to the Keys, including a wholesale water agreement and a range of alternatives up to a complete asset acquisition and integration into the district. So a range of alternatives. And of course, what that would cost, the process, the timing, and the district improvements that would be necessary to accomplish that. So with this letter, request from the Keys, I met with Gary, and we met internally a number of times on this to put kind of our initial thoughts together. And then we met with the Keys just this past Monday, just to make sure we're on the same page and agree on the process moving forward. And I think we're seeing really 3 basic elements of this effort. First, a legal regulatory component, second, an engineering and system improvements component, and third, kind of the financial component. And so I'm looking at Gary for our assistance on the first item, legal regulatory, and somewhat to our staff, but especially to a third-party consultant for engineering and finance, and we need the keys to pay for these efforts. So Gary has been working on a reimbursement agreement that would be between the district and the keys. And Gary, I think you just sent us a draft earlier today, so we'll take a look at that.
Right.
Would you like to comment, Gary?
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it, on Monday to make sure when we had that call, to make sure the keys was on board with that, and they were. And the start date that everyone agreed upon for reimbursement was May 3rd, because that's when the district and our firm started to do some work on this. So all those costs will capture the bill. The district will bill, send an invoice to the keys for that work. That way we're kept whole. And I think, as John explained during that call, the idea was to use consultants to do this work because district staff is pretty much fully loaded right now. And so the idea is to use the consultant, those costs will be fully reimbursable by the keys. So again, we're not out of pocket. I sent a draft over this morning, as John mentioned, to him and to Paul and to Julie to take a look at. And once we get sign off from them, I'll make any adjustments they think are necessary. And then John can send it over to Tahoe Keys to take a look at. And we'll get that going.
Yes, I think moving forward, we'll bring this to the board for approval.
I think we wait to see what the keys have, make sure they don't, I mean, we could bring it forward and make the approval subject to any, deviations that we need to finish negotiations if they have any changes to it, or we could wait until they sign off on it.
Yeah, right now, the keys, I'm looking at their next board meeting is June 16th, so I think that would be fine. Maybe once it's approved at the keys,
Now,
we can bring it forward.
well, at least if we get management buy-off. And
Sure.
I think they have a committee also.
Yeah,
If
it's
it's all
advisory committee set up meeting
everything
tomorrow.
looks good, maybe we bring it back on the first meeting in June.
Okay. Kind of plan on doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. That's really all I have on the
I had a
keys.
couple questions with keys.
Yes, sir.
Primarily with their sustainability planning. And, forgive me for being skeptical, but if you're looking to reduce kind of your turf and water usage, building the infrastructure now to ensure you don't have to do that strikes me as kind of counterproductive. And so is it a real sustainability plan? Is it something they're just doing to placate? And also, again, as we look to kind of the legislative piece meet the keys, we understand there is going to be regulatory action coming from Sacramento that is going to kind of limit water usage per household. How that all plays out, we don't know. But we are potentially acquiring in the keys that we know their build condition already takes more than their share within that reality. And so we would be adopting a non-compliant situation that makes kind of complying with any further state regulation more problematic. And so looking to utilize this opportunity to drive real substantive change at the keys, because otherwise we'll just be inheriting that problem into the future. And at some point it will have to be addressed. These regulations won't go away. And so, what I would advocate for is a real solution unto their problems. And that solution would have to kind of work backwards into what we anticipate state legislation to adopt. Because, as I don't know exactly what's that going to be, I can tell you it's not going to align with the landscaping plan in the keys. And we all know that. And so we need to understand, how they're going to get us to where we're going to need to go. Because at some point we will have to intervene with, our own funds into this process. And then where this goes to the acquisition is, as we've talked about before, any of those funds is going to have to be derived or provided, directly from the keys to the district. So whatever the cost of their grass is, because we're talking about, infrastructure costs essentially to finance their ability to keep watering their grass, those funds are gonna have to be captured by the keys within any agreement here. And I'm really gonna be looking for that, and I wanna highlight that now, because that's gonna be a singular point that I'll be looking forward for as we move forward in this process. Because again, we have an opportunity now. I think this opportunity is being wasted, and the idea that a sustainability plan is captured within a few or 20 some odd meters is not realistic. Thank you.
Yeah, I have just one follow-up comment, and maybe let me address your concern too. I think John had mentioned before, and we are, and again today, we're looking at what it would entail to, if the Keys decided they want to become part of the district and the district wants to acquire them, what that would take from a number of different things, including current regulatory requirements, and as well as future that would be laid down, and what those things would cost. I think the initial idea we had is, given that, Julie would be looking at the cost of some of that infrastructure, what it would take to do that, to capture those costs and that would probably be, the Keys area would be a separate zone for rates, to have them pay for the improvements and things to bring them into compliance, not only with the standards of the district system, but anything else we need to do to make them fit within our conservation efforts, or now or in the future, so that they pay their fair share going forward.
So you could create kind of a special rate district around the Keys? You could create a special rate district around the Keys?
Yes.
Okay.
Just as a preview, in the analysis that we're putting together, that's what we're suggesting.
No, I appreciate that. That completely addresses my question.
Yeah, so they're not going to get it's just to be fair. It's to be fair to your current ratepayers and to be fair to Keys to make sure they're paying their portion too.
No, I agree, and it's not to be punitive to those folks, of course, but it's more just the equity piece.
Correct, and it would probably be for some period of time. Let's say it was you need to spend $2 million on their system, or whatever the number is. That the rate, if we went out and if we had to finance it and go get a loan, that would be built into the rate for whatever period the loan was, 20 or 30 years.
Right.
At the end of that, they would then probably transition back to a normal rate with all your customers once they've equalized everything. The other way they could do it is, as part of the transaction, the Keys themselves could fund that up front and just give the district enough money to do the things we need to do. So there's a couple of different ways they could approach it. That's kind of a brief preview of that component of our analysis.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Does anybody feel the need to take a break before we go into closed session, or should we just go right into in open session? Nothing to report. This meeting is adjourned.